Sometimes we go through life and there are different paths to us, different phases, different moments, different events, different seasons. And sometimes we can get lost in that journey and we're like, where have I been? And
So you are drifting along. But you get to a point where you now tell yourself, I mean, I need to stop. Am I just continuing on this journey, or am I choosing to
mm,
go in this very direction? So are you a drifter, or
mm,
have you made a decision on the path you want to go? At some point, you have to ask yourself that question.
all right. All right. All right. All right. Hi, everyone. It's another episode of Let's Talk TikTok. It's it's a show, a conversation, a meeting of minds where we talk to real people, talk real events around the topic of taking stock of yourself, taking stock of who you have become, taking stock of the journey ahead, as you journey towards becoming. And it's centered around the book that I wrote, Take Stock of Who You Have Become on the Journey to Becoming. Take stock of who you have become on the journey to becoming. And we're going to be talking about, a lot of the insights from the lens of our special guest today, who's Dr. Ditari Adebisi. We're going to introduce her. She's going to introduce herself because she can only do justice to it, by herself. When in our tagline, in case you already saw the flyer for this week, we said building health, building people. So she's going to double click, like, okay, you're building health, you're building people, give us perspective. But just hold on a minute, we will get to her in a bit, right? And so the goal of the sessions really is to talk about real life examples of how people are leveraging the principles of intentional living. The book is principle based, right? So some of it is not just, oh, what is written in the book, but the concept of what is in the book and how that's applicable to you and myself as we navigate our journey of being the people that God has designed for this earth. And so before we get too far into this conversation, we're going to be having a quick word of prayer just to, set the tone as we deep dive into a fun, insightful and impactful conversation all packed in one. So let's say a quick word of prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for the privilege for us to again come talk to your people about being intentional, about impacts, about making a difference in our world. Father, we ask that everyone who stands to learn, who stands to gain insights for this conversation, that Lord, you speak to them, you open their ears and their hearts, and they would know for sure that this is a message that you have for them. Thank you, Father, for the privilege to be vessels to have this conversation. We rejoice knowing that it's already an impactful conversation. In Jesus' name, amen. All
Amen.
right, my name is Funmilola Asa. I am a transformational catalyst. That's how I summarize myself, because when I think about the different expressions of my life, whether it's in day-to-day business world or impacting people, or just being a person here on earth, filling up my own space as a puzzle, I help others to transform by providing strategic insights, helping them to unlock their transformation. And it's always such a joy to see people walk away, either from a conversation or something that I've done or something that we work together on, and feeling like, okay, I picked up something. I'm thinking about something differently. And that expression comes as in authorship. I just talked about being an author of the book. I teach a master class around the book, of course, and more details to come in our conversations. Host a conference, a personal empowerment conference. And yes, on that topic, envoy to the Envoy conference, the Envoys conference. I'll be holding in Houston, Texas, October 17, 2026. We had a great time last year. Last year was the maiden conference. This year, we're going to have another one. If you're in Houston or can make it to Houston on October 17th, you don't want to miss it. It's free, but registration is compulsory because the seats are going to fill up. And so you want to make it a date to come have these conversations again around transforming, being impactful, being intentional as envoys sent into life's marketplace and who are influencing their space. All right, so back to our conversations today. For me, is a mother, a wife, a daughter, sister, a friend. Somebody who's here living out my purpose. as God has designed it, and helping others to find the spark, to find the light bulbs as their own journey themes come together and they take their space in God's picture story to the world. All right, that said, can we get into the book? Now, the book takes stock of who you have become. As part of these conversations, I always try to spotlight something in there so that we can kind of ground as we move forward. And so today's topic is, rooted, fruitful, and ready to move. And we had added the writer unlocking impact. And so it's about what's in your hands. How are you grounding what's in your hand? How are you using that to be fruitful? And then how are you just taking that to go to the next level of impact? And we're going to be unpacking that one step after the other as we go through the conversations today. If you are looking to get your own copy of Take Stock of Who You Have Become on the Journey to Becoming, one, head over to Amazon. It is on Amazon if you're in diaspora, wherever you are in the world. If Amazon delivers to you, Take Stock of Who You Have Become is on Amazon. If you're in Nigeria, we have recently stocked it in SBA Reads in Surulere. Number one, James Robertson, Surulere, SBA. Just hurry over there to get Take Stock and other books. And then we also have it in Ibadan and the booksellers in Ibadan. We have it in Benin, in Bookville World. Yeah, Bookville World in Benin. All right, that's it. What are we spotlighting in TikTok? Because I bet some of you are like, can we get to talking to Ditari already? Yes, we are getting there very shortly. And so in the meantime, one of the things I want to talk about is in chapter 4 of the book. And I'll be reading, actually, just a very short couple of sentences because it struck my mind. Every time I want to talk about the book, I was like, okay, so what do we want to talk about today? What should I spotlight? What is most related? And then I opened my copy of the book, and people, believe me, this book is so powerful. Not because I wrote it. I have underlines in my own copy. I open it and it speaks to me fresh. And I'm like, who wrote this? And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's inspired. The Lord, the Lord wrote it. He used me as a vessel to write it. But on this page 157, one of the things that kind of stuck out to me, and it's something that Ditari also said, in the course of some conversations that we had earlier in the year, is that when you don't take stock of your journey intentionally to articulate the journey and the message, you unintentionally diminish your experiences and by extension, your self-esteem. I'll leave it there. And so here's the thing, what Ditari said to me is that, what, I realized the story can be written down. Sometimes we go through life and there are different paths towards different phases, different moments, different events, different seasons. And sometimes we can get lost in that journey and we're like, where have I been? And so like the traveler who has traveled from like Lagos to say the United States, and you wake up and you're like, my body's tired. But you're like, where have I been? But you know that you have been transatlantic. Then you realize that, okay, there's a reason, I feel this way.
Right.
And how can we work on it? How can we improve? How can we leverage that for where we want to go? And so it doesn't matter where you've been at, it doesn't matter what path life has led you on. Your journey can be articulated. And watch this space. There's something coming in that space for this one is specifically for women, middle career women, but more to come in that space. And so with that, I'm going to switch this conversation very, very quickly to talking to Ditari today. Ditari, I just want to say thank you so very much for doing this with me, because I feel like it's an appointment with destiny for somebody. Yeah, and when we have this conversation, even I learned something new from the book. Like someone's going to give me a perspective, and I'm like, well, you know what? I didn't even think about it that way. And so I'm hoping that as we have this conversation, share our experiences, we will be impacting somebody. So thank you for taking out the time. And of course, by the time you're watching it out there, people, we're premiering this August 22nd. We are pre-recording, but thank you so very much, Ditari. All right.
Thank you for
So
having me.
with that, let's introduce you. Can you please introduce yourself to us? Who is Dr. Ditari Adebisi? Professionally, so when we say doctor, we already like have an idea, and then our tagline says building, building people, building health. But we're looking to see, who are you, the person, plus all of that professionalism
All of
added
that.
to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rumi. And thanks for having me here. I don't consider it I don't take it lightly. It's an honor and it's a privilege to actually be here to share some part of me with the audience out there. Whoever it inspires, I know that God will direct the person's footstep here if it's meant for that person. So thank you so much. So who is Ditari Adebisi? So first of all, my full name is Ditari. That's my full first name. But a lot of people call me Tari or even know me as Tari. They may not know the full name, but so Tari is fine as well, and it's easier on your lips as well. So
We're gonna do
Tari,
that.
Tari is, how do I even start this? I'm a girl. Um, a girl helped by God. I know when people say that it's like cliche, people always say that a small girl with big God and all of that. But I'm truly a girl just helped by God, a girl whose hand God has been holding from birth, a girl who's been through a lot but is still here, still standing, a girl who loves life, tries to learn from the things she's been through, and tries to make the journey easier for other people who are probably walking that same path. In a nutshell, I think that's what I'm here for, just to make the life of somebody else a little bit easier than I had it, especially if it's the same experience. So that's who Tari is. Beyond that whole thing, that sounds as if I want to become very deep now. That's not my intention. Tari is a medical doctor. So yes, I studied medicine. I've been practicing for, when I say practicing now, I mean I left medical school about 2 decades ago. So I've been practicing medicine since then. Like every doctor who graduates, you start from the clinical practice, seeing patients. And then I decided to do a residency program in family medicine. I did that, completed that. But then somewhere in the middle of that, I developed an interest for occupational health, which is the health of workers or people in a workplace, more or less. And I delved into that world a couple of years ago, and that's where I've been, for some time now. So when you say building health, building people, yes. So now I may not be seeing the patients on a day-to-day basis and interacting with them, but I'm in a place where I can help shape the health of the workforce so that they are more productive and they are at work for longer. So I consider myself a corporate well-being strategist, taking what I see, making sense of it, and then giving some form of direction to what I think the people need so that they can actually be at work for longer. So that's my professional bit. Apart from that, Tari is a wife, she's a mom, she's a daughter, she's a sister. I was giggling when you were saying the same things. I'm like, Fumi has taken my words right out of my mouth. And I'm a friend, a very loyal friend. I consider, in fact, people who know me will tell you Tari is loyal. If I'm loyal to you, if you're my friend, you are my friend. And there's hardly any reason why I would, I mean, relationships change, but there's hardly any reason why I would just totally say, no, this person cannot be in my space or around me for, I mean, it's difficult to actually see that with me. And beyond that, I'm a Christian, like I said at the beginning, a child of God, helped by God, not perfect, but putting in the work day by day until it becomes perfect or until Jesus comes, whichever. So
Thank
that's who I
you.
am.
Thank you. Thank you for that detailed description. Like, just dishing it out step by step by step. She's like, oh, I'm going to take you to like, okay, this is me, helped by God, all of that. I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to take you deep, but I'm just going to give you that perspective of me. And then there's
Mm.
me, the professional person, and how, your journey has taken all is path from seeing the patients to then shaping, the journey for others in terms of their wealth. I like how you called it a corporate well-being strategist. I'm not sure I'd heard that before. So yeah, new word for me. And I like how you say that you've been helped by God. Lastly, are you taking applications for friends? Yeah.
I am actually. In fact, I threatened two friends of mine who decided to leave me in this country and go somewhere else. Like, people are no longer here. I can't walk into your house and go into your kitchen and open your pot. So I need new friends to be able to
Okay.
do that with. So I am taking applications.
All
I
right,
hope they hear
people.
that.
Because she said she's a loyal friend. So we're on the queue. You join me very quickly on the queue. But thank you so much for that, introduction. It helps us for where we're going with this conversation. Because you've said somebody who's been through a lot and loves life. They always say, you don't look like what you've been through. The
No.
conversation this
Mm,
year with someone. And it's been quite a year as it stretched in many ways, schedule and all of that. And I said the beauty is that you don't look like it. I'm like, oh, thank God I don't look like it because you don't want to know what it's been like. And so I imagine that, like you said, it comes from a deep place when you say, you've been helped by God, you love life, you've been through a lot. So when you think about your journey so far, what are your key moments, your encounters, your experiences that
Hmm.
you believe has shaped you to be the person that you are today? Just give us a sneak peek. I know that we can't do everything, but
We can't know everything for sure. And then I look at my life and I say, there's really hardly any part of my life or any moment that is not instrumental to the person I am today. Really hardly any part. But let's start from the beginning. I mean, I was born into a Christian family, what you call a normal family. I don't know what normal is these days, what people define as normal, but father, mother, and children, but normal family, and a Christian family. So I grew up knowing morals, what right is, what wrong is. And I grew up going to church. So I knew about God. And then into my late teens, just for getting into the university, I started knowing or finding out about God for myself. That's getting to know God, not just knowing about Him, getting to have a one-on-one personal relationship with Him. So maybe that would be one of my very key moments, that's getting to know Him. I mean, God shapes our lives. Yes, this is a Christian based, so I can be free to speak about God.
absolutely.
Yeah. So that would be one moment. Another would be the examples I had around me. So my parents were working class. Father was in corporate, my mom was a secretary at one point. And I think one of the moments in my childhood that probably defined who, I don't know, maybe that's where I go get my drive from. I really don't know. But I remember in my third, I think JS3 or so, when my mom came to see me in school, boarding house or so, and told me she was going back to school to study law. I said, study law. She was tired of being a secretary. She wanted to be a lawyer. I said, study law. Like it was like a joke to me. I laughed. I remember I laughed out loud, like, Mommy, please. She did go back to school to study law. She did finish. It was called to the bar, passed her bar exams, called to the bar, went on and did masters. So when you have that example in front of you, your mother, what excuse do you really have to be anything less than what God has called you to be? Nothing. That was a defining moment. And I'm thinking back now, have I ever told her this? I doubt I ever told her. I've never told her this. So maybe I should go back and tell her. So for me, that was it. Like you can be anything you choose to be. If you put your mind to something, you can really achieve it. So that's another part I think defined person I am. The third probably would be perhaps the person I married. Um, I have a very supportive spouse who will never tell you that, no, you cannot do this. So if I say I want to do this, go right ahead. I'm behind you. If I'm now saying in the middle of it, I'm not doing again, he will tell you, remember why you started the journey and how convinced you were and how excited you were. Remember? So that also has helped me in some ways to build my character to to be where I am today. Because really, if you do not have the support, no matter how much you dream, you probably would fall short. So that's another thing. Would that be a fourth thing now? Let's see. What else has shaped me? I think I'll leave it there. Maybe in the course of the conversation, some other things may come up. Oh, yes, I remember one, So I waited quite a while to have my children. That experience was an experience. That experience I feel could have, sent somebody else off the deep end. But I think I built a lot of character in that waiting season, a lot of character. I learned to be patient with myself, which was not easy for me. I learned to be patient with others. I learned to shut out the voices of certain people, especially when they were not driving me towards my goal. That period was a period where I knew that God made me a resilient person. That period. I can't not talk about it, but yeah, so those are the four things I think are moments or situations or circumstances that shaped the person that I am today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so, so very much. When you got to the last bit, I smiled, and I'll come back to why I smiled when you got to the last bit. Um, so you talked about starting from the beginning, and that's one of the things I like when I work with people and we're trying to say, okay, how does where you've been shape who you are. Often when we're trying to think about where we're going next, we're thinking professionally, we're thinking about our adult life, but some of our strongest roots come from really early life experiences. And sometimes those are the things that we need to go back to, especially if we're feeling out of alignment. Sometimes you need to go back and grab the mirror and like, who was Funmilola Asa when I was a child? And I didn't have all the cares and the worries in the world. Who was I? Because often those things have implication for who you then become, right? And
Yeah,
so I
yeah,
like I
true.
like that you reference that, because for somebody who's watching this right now, they probably need to go back to that beginning and be like, two things: what inspired you then, or what may have contributed to some of the colored lenses that you're now carrying that you need to
Yeah,
carefully discard, right?
yeah,
So I
yeah,
like how you kind of started there, because sometimes we forget once after certain years of life, right? Once you talk about
exactly.
leaving medical school after so many years. So of course we can kind of put the math somewhere there. But your beginnings are still that root, right? That helped you to where you are. I like how you talked about your mom. I talk to people about impact. Like impact is like such a big word sometimes. Okay,
Mm,
who are you making a difference for? Imagine
mm,
your
mm,
mom, like you said, you probably haven't even told her that. Not
mm,
realizing how much impact she had on framing your perspective to life,
mm,
that anything
mm,
is possible when you put your mind to it. And so
mm,
for some of us, it's like, what are we leaving behind? What's the legacy? What are the people around us seeing today that they might not be telling you, but it's forming a picture and a frame inside of their mind of who they go on
mm.
to become. And so
Yeah,
thank you for
yeah.
highlighting that. I like when you talk about, marriage, like, our last Let's Talk TikTok was a couple. And it's important because, oh goodness, one of the biggest life decisions is, who you're choosing to journey life with. And that has implications for whether or not you're going to be catalyzed, or whether or not you're always swimming against the tide.
Mm,
Because the
mm.
closest people who see you when you're at your weakest, because, it's for us to be dressed up, motivated on the days that we're motivated.
Yeah.
There are some days you look at what you have in front of you and you're like, okay, I don't know about this at this point in time. And so having the right supportive, system is important. Well, lastly, when you talk about waiting for your children, I smiled because I didn't know that until you said that today, right? And you know that
Mm,
that's my story. I have a 9-year old, and my marriage turned 18 years, this July. So I waited 9 years, and I believe that was one of the places where God sort of shaped character for me.
mm.
Patience is still kind of work in progress between me and God and all that. But things like resilience,
Mm,
being able to
mm,
shut out the voices, being able to realize that you're complete in yourself, and that the
mm,
blessings God gives you are the blessings, but it doesn't diminish who you are while you wait. Those were my own
definitely.
stories. And I like how you highlighted, it taught you patience, it taught you character. It taught you to shut out voices, because you hear all sorts,
All
some
sorts.
of them
Mm,
well-meaning, some of them completely
mm,
off the shelf. But either ways, your ability
mm,
to shut that off is very important. So thank you for just giving us a peek there. And that's very important for somebody out here who's kind of listening. And like, we want you to be able to take a journey back into yourself and say, how did I get here? And so
mm,
let's talk about Take Stock. So Take Stock, the book. Uh,
mm.
what can you describe your encounter with TikTok? And what drew you to it? And or if we're drawn to it, eventually you got it. What struck a chord for you,
Yeah, both for
in
me.
TikTok?
Yeah. So, um, okay, so I hadn't heard about the book. I mean, there are many books in the world. I hadn't heard about TikTok. I hadn't heard about Funmilola Asa and all, but I belong to a book club, Revivify Your Mind. I'm sure you know the book club because you're smiling and nodding, so you know the book club, and you know, and you know the convener who is Shade Gundari. So that was our first book for this year, 2026 of TikTok. I'm like, interesting, Nigerian author. I don't think we had read one. Okay, maybe we had read one before with a Nigerian author, but usually most of the time wasn't Nigerian author. So anyway, she said TikTok is the book. And I remember that when I saw the title, I laughed out loud because I had just done a vision board, vision board exercise maybe the week before or so. And there were a lot of things on my mind. You know how it is at the beginning of the year. All the things you did not achieve last year will come in, the things you want to achieve for the next 10 years. Everything is competing for space in your mind and in your head. And I laughed like, because I was telling myself, I need to sit down. Before then, I was already telling myself, I need to sit down and understand my journey,
Hmm.
saying that to myself. And then Shade came up with the book, and I'm like, this is interesting. And so, yes, that's how the book was introduced to me, to us, to several people, I believe. And then we began to read, and then they gave me a chapter of the book to review for the club. And I think it was chapter 6 where it talked about why ticks talk. So that's how I came into the book. And then I was reading, and a lot of things said, I may not remember everything verbatim, but a lot of things said in that chapter actually resonated with me. And so probably chapter 6 will probably be the chapter I actually studied. Let me put it that way, studied. The other ones, oh yes, I read the entire book and all. By the way, thank you for giving us the audio version because I am an audiobook girl because I will drive, I will listen, I'll be doing something else, I'll be listening. So that helped my life. Otherwise, that book is lengthy.
Some people say
and
the
so
encyclopedia.
and so it helps that it was the audio version. I could replay, I could go back without my eyes getting tired. So yes, so that's a good one. So yeah, that's why I got introduced to it. And the analogies you used in that chapter 6, I remember you talked about somebody on a journey. I don't know whether it was chapter 6, but somebody on a journey who would typically, I mean, you know where you are headed to, you know where your destination is, but how are you sure you're even on the right track? Have you looked around you? Have you seen the sign? I mean, I probably am adding some other stuff that deduce from it, but have you looked at the signs around you? Where are you coming from? Where are you going to? The journey, has it taken longer than you should take? It's supposed to be 30 minutes. You've been here for 4 hours. Are you sure you're on the right track? Those are the things I kept thinking about when I was, reading the book, especially that particular chapter. And so, yeah, that's how I got introduced to the book in a nutshell.
No,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing
Mm.
about that because I think you're probably referring to when I started and said, if you get into a bus and you're heading to the north and you just get there, you close your eyes and sleep, and you're like you're never checking, you're not listening to the conversations, and people are saying, "Oh, I'm coming to meet you in there." You're wondering, are you in the right bus? And the longer it takes
But
you to pause and recognize where you are, the further it is for you to return to where you're supposed to be headed in life. And so that's
exactly.
why
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
call for just being intentional, right? Whenever you
Mm.
wake up is that day, is that morning. Don't feel
Exactly.
like, okay, yeah, it's taking forever. Okay, but at least you've woken up, you've saved yourself another day, another year of going down a path that is not necessarily aligned with where
Mm.
you are really intending to go. And so I'm glad that that resonated with you. It's been quite a journey with the book. Some people say, for me, this is like a journal. I read it, I look at it. It's not an easy thing to go through. And that's
Uh,
why we did the
mm.
audiobook. So I'm glad you spoke to it. I didn't even know that you got the audiobook. And
Yeah,
that
not the
audiobook
audio.
is, I think, total end to end is about 11 hours plus, right? So people, if your excuse is that is,
Mm.
read big book, go and buy the audiobook, quick, quick, quick.
Mm.
All right. So thank
Mm.
you for talking about that. And of course, as a writer to that, we kind of got you in. Or no, we didn't get you in. You decided to join the master class that we take on the Instant
Yeah,
Impact
yeah.
master class.
Mm.
Now, as part
Mm.
of kind of wrap up on when we're finishing the master class, you were talking about your reflections because we do that a lot. Like, what did you pick?
Yeah.
One of the things that you said, you highlighted in your presentation is like you take stock or be shortchanged.
Mm.
That was like, the lesson. And I think it also comes from that chapter 6, that you refer to, right? And I'm like,
Mm.
so why would you think that it's important from that lens? If you can just share some color to it.
Okay. So, everyone has a story, right?
Hmm.
I once heard someone say, if you want your story told properly, then you write it. Do
Hmm.
not wait for another person's. You talked about colored lenses before. So somebody else may be looking at you, through a different perspective or from a different perspective, or your own story, where you're coming from, the things that have shaped your decisions you've made, which may not be visible to somebody else. So if you are not the one writing your story, then who have you handed power over to
Hmm.
do that for you, right? And besides, as a human being or as human beings, our natural predisposition is actually to just drift. We drift. We are born into a family. We have no control over that. You have no control over who your parents are, who your siblings are, who surrounds you. At some point, you have no control over that. Okay. And then, so things come at you, your environment shapes you in some form. So you are drifting along. But it gets to a point where you now tell yourself, I mean, I need to stop. Am I just continuing on this journey or am I choosing to
Hmm.
go in this very direction? So are you a drifter or
Hmm.
have you made a decision on the path you want to go? At some point you have to ask yourself that question, right? So those are some of the things that stood out for me. Like, okay, have I been drifting all this? I know this is where I am. I mean, to people outside, it seems like people, oh, she's done well. But is this where I really want to be? Is this where I should be? Okay. Is this where I really want to be? the steps I have taken up till now, were they decisions I consciously made?
Mm.
Or did I just find myself there and I'm here? I just found myself here, So those questions, the book kept, how you're reading, just like when you're reading the Bible and the Holy Spirit keeps telling you this thing is meant for you. This thing is meant that
Yes.
this one is for you. Underline, go back, read it again, go back, read it again, close the Bible, memorize this verse. That was how it was for me. I kept going back to, I mean, if it was a book, it was a hard copy, I probably would have underlined, lots of things. But I kept going back, like this journey I'm on, is this the intention? From when I was a child, and that's one of the things, the reflections that we did. Um, I hope I'm not mixing two different things, but I mean, there was a time I actually sat down to think about my childhood. Who is Tari? I mean, who was Tari as a child? What were the things I was interested in that somehow life sort of took out of me as I was going along? I had to go back there, you know. Anyway, I don't want to be rambling, but
No, you are not.
those were some of the
You
things the
are
book
not.
did for me.
You are not.
Self-reflection self-reflection. It forced me to look inwards, and to face my fears. Face my fears, face the things I knew were there. Maybe not fears, but were there, and I'd never really taken proper thought about. And another thing I remember I got out of the book was that preparation trumps performance. It's people perform every day. I mean, we have them everywhere, especially in this era of social media. People want to put things out there, but that the work you do inside is as good as, if not even bigger than what you should be really showcasing.
Mm, mm,
If you are a tree, if a tree is planted in the ground, before that tree sprouts, if a seed is planted in the ground, before that seed sprouts, its roots must go deep
mm,
to get the nutrients from the soil.
mm,
Before you now see that little um, leaf shooting out, or the shoots, or whatever they call it, coming out, because it has gone deep. So many things have occurred before you start seeing what is coming up on the surface. And this is what Take Stock did for me. Also, it forced me to remember the reason. I mean, so, there are certain things you have, they come naturally to you, but you don't even recognize that these are assets that you
yeah.
have. You do
Yeah.
not recognize that these are resources. People are in your life. You do not recognize that these are actually resources that God has actually sent my way to help me on my journey. But then when you start reflecting and start taking stock really of where you are, you then begin to realize that, look, I may not be where I want to be, but I definitely have a lot already that is here within me, around me, that can actually propel me to that place I want to be. So these are some of the nuggets, thoughts,
Mm.
lessons that I got from the book.
No,
I could go on and on,
thank
but
you. Thank you. So every time I hear
mm,
somebody, and that's the beauty of principles, right? I always say
yeah,
to people that, when you want to unpack, I have an analogy of it at the end of the book. It's like you have to unpack this knowledge for yourself,
for
right? There are
yourself.
certain instances that I'd seen, the certain parts I talked about my own stories, some other people's stories, but at the heart of it, when it only finds meaning for you when you take it to your own context and say, what does this mean for me? And so because of that, everyone who's really done that work, when I hear them talk about it, I sit and even I'm learning stuff and I'm like, okay, I didn't even see that angle because you know the
Angle.
path that you have walked, right? And so now when it comes, it's interacting with the journey that you have been on, and then it just gives you a different perspective, which somebody else needs, somebody else who
Mm,
can relate, somebody else who's like, oh, tell me, and they can really understand that. And so I like how you said that. And then there's something you said, are we drifters or are we making a decision? Like that's a very hard conversation to have with ourselves because sometimes we just justify things, but you just ask
yeah.
yourself, and it's rooted in your ability to say, where was I coming from? Who was I?
Mm,
Before
mm,
everything was just shoved and shoved down my path. And I know we can go on and on with this matter. So we're gonna move forward. You've talked about the importance of taking stock, right?
yeah,
And the
yeah.
fact that it helps you to take control. You get into the driver's seat of your decisions, right? uh I'm busy. How do I get to take stock? This is not easy, to try to do that, and so with
Oh
your
my
busy
goodness.
life, how
Mm.
are you able to, or how do you create that time, or what can you advise somebody who feels like, oh, I'm too busy for all that. I know that it's good, but
Mm.
I'm too busy for it. How do you pause, reflect, and listen? How do you do that?
Okay, so first thing I would say to the person would be a day at a time. I mean, this is fast becoming my mantra. A day at a time. The Bible says that sufficient for today is its trouble. I mean, tomorrow will be there and be tomorrow's own issues, which you will have to face anyway. But a day at a time, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. I think as human beings, and especially as women, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We tend to want to do things faster than God probably has even intended, and we just put a lot of pressure on ourselves. So yes, first thing would be to take it a day at a time. Second thing I've learned to do would be to prioritize. There are
Hmm.
many things calling for your attention. I was looking at my WhatsApp a few days ago at all the groups I belong to on WhatsApp. In fact, take stock and insight to impact. I don't even know how many groups there are anymore. There are plenty. And then you have church groups, and then you have work groups, and then you have other groups, social groups. And then, so I'm like, okay, only me will be dealing with all of this. And in many of them, you are a leader. So you're like, how are we going to do? But then prioritization. Some things will come first, some things will come second, some things will come third, some things will be shelved aside for family time. You need to prioritize. That's what I've been telling myself. Am I perfect at it? No. I mean, it's a daily struggle for me still, but I think I'm getting better because it's now, at the back of my mind that I have to be intentional about setting priorities. In my office, I have a whiteboard where every month I write the things that I should achieve. So if it's to review documents, if it's to rewrite something, if it's to do a roadmap for something, I write in June, that, and I tick it as I go along. July, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. August, this is what I'm supposed. So that kind of helps me, keeps me in check. Another thing I do now on a daily basis is taking deliberate breaks because sometimes you can get carried away with the work you are doing. Oh, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. But those 10 minutes breaks, 15 minutes break, blocking out your 1 hour lunch period to actually just shut everything, shut down the computer and just think or pray or exercise. I mean, around my office, they know me. Once it's 12, don't even bother yourself. She's not in the office. I've gone on my walk, especially if it's not raining. I take a 1 hour walk around the facility just to clear my head, breathe in fresh air. So those things help me. It's part of self-care. They help me a lot, and I wouldn't stop doing that. Or even if I'm not doing anything, I just lock my door and sit in my office and I just want peace and quiet, not answering any phones and all of that. So that also helps. And then another thing I tell myself, Tari, you can actually feel forward. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work out today. If what you had planned today didn't go quite go, so you have 10 things on your to-do list, which is too much, by the way. You have 10 things on your to-do list and you ended up only doing three. And at the end of the day, you feel like such a failure, like, okay, so what did I actually spend my time on? What else did I achieve? It's okay. Shove it aside, move on to the next day, take a fresh sheet of paper, do another to-do list, and start from there. So those are some of the things I am trying to do to keep my sanity,
Mm-hmm.
to keep my mental health, to keep my physical health, to even keep my spiritual health. Because if you do not even have time to spend with the God who created you, then what are you really, yeah, what are you really doing? So it keeps me just complete. Just take those deliberate breaks and then prioritize and then just give yourself, you know, cut yourself some slack, give yourself grace where it doesn't, when it doesn't happen the way you want it to happen.
No, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that a day at a time because that's something that we all need. People who are busy, multifaceted,
Mm,
multiple parts, but prioritize. Like we need to prioritize. And I like how you said that we're not perfect, right? The beauty of things like being exposed to things like take stock and all of that is that it's
mm,
also been like a mending journey for me myself because it makes me more aware of what's going.
mm,
Self-awareness becomes a thing because I'm like, okay, yeah, for me, let's grab ourselves back here, right? Um,
mm,
how are we doing with this? How are we prioritizing the break? Okay, today we are today. Where do we go from here? So thanks for highlighting that. Another thing
yeah.
you had talked about is just, and we said it before that, and I think you already said it. So again, I just want to see if there's anything else you'd like to add. Is that you said our journey, one's journey can be articulated, like it can be written down. And in my
Mm,
mind, I'm like, okay, so what shifted you? Like, what made you come to that conclusion? And I always like to be to caveat
Mm,
say things like, oh, the masterclass. Most times we're already on that journey. We're very well, like you said your year already with vision board, you knew what you wanted.
mm,
But was that last
mm,
catalyst? I was like, yeah, that's it. This is
mm.
the thing. So, but so generally, when you think about what made you eventually come to that realization that, you know what, my journey can be written down and it's important. And you said it today already, like, you know, you're the one that says the 360. But what was it that made you eventually come to that conclusion?
So I think there were lots of things I was grappling with at the beginning of the year. There were lots of different directions I could go in, and I didn't quite know which path to take. And I think I'd shared this with Shadi, I think. I'd shared this with her. Like there are different directions, different pathways, and I didn't quite know which one to take. So I now started asking myself deeper questions like, okay, so I mean, you know where you're coming from. I sat down, I thought about it, I wrote some things down. I mean, and then of course, the book also highlighted the reason why we should actually take stock and all of that. And then I know where I want to be. I know where I want to go. I don't where I sort of know. I don't probably do not know the path to take, but I know the direction. Does that even make sense? You know
Yeah,
that you know where you're supposed to
it
be headed
does.
to. But there are many ways to get there, right? So you don't know which particular road to take to get to that your destination, even though you know your destination. Those things were just being thrown at me. Lots of questions I needed to ask myself. I needed to even sit my husband down at some point, ask him certain questions, where we're headed to as a family and all of that. So those were the, things that were I won't say I was battling with, but were uppermost in my mind at the beginning of the year. And then, the book only just made things a bit clearer. One of the things I said before joining the masterclass was that I was seeking clarity. And that's what I've just said now is what I was referring to. Clarity about what particular path to take. Clarity for family, clarity for career, clarity for different things, my personal stuff and all of that, where I want to go, how I want to give back to society. I needed clarity on a lot of things. And for me, that's how this book came handy. And I mean, if I read this book 2, 3 times, I'm sure I would be taking very different lessons each time I read them. That's the beauty of something God has inspired. You get into it, you read it the first time, you think you've gotten something, you read it again on another day, and you're getting something totally different from what you got the first time. And I believe that it was God sent. It was the right book for me at the right time. That's what I think. It came at the right time.
The book is God inspired. I wrote in the book at some point, I am somebody who likes to do things a certain way, and then he kept
Mm,
dragging it back out of my hand. And I said, at this
mm,
point, me and God have an agreement that this is his
mm.
book. I'm just
His
writing
book,
it.
exactly.
It's his book, and I'm just writing it. And that's how I feel
Yeah.
about it myself too. To your
Mm,
point, like there's some days I'm going through stuff, and I pick up the book, and I'm like, okay, and I reread certain things and it's reading to
mm,
me differently, than it
friendly.
last was the last time. And
Mm,
that's the beauty of, like you said, of a God inspired book. So I just had to kind of
yeah.
round to the second, kind of wrap it up. We still have a couple of minutes, but I want to wrap these two
Mm,
questions together. One of them is
okay.
just about the fact that, the theme of this session, it says rooted, fruitful, ready to move,
Mm,
unlocking your impact. And in
mm,
my mind, I'm like, okay, so what does that mean when you think about that? But also, you talked about your mission around just being able to see things. You had said you want to make a difference where you're at. And if I could quote to some extent, you had said, you want to be that person that sees what's broken, like what's needed, what
mm,
everybody else does not see. And you want
mm-hmm.
to leave places better than you met them. And so between those two, can you kind of bring them together? Because there's a sense of, being rooted, being fruitful, and then ready to move. And like, what are you doing where you
Mm.
are, and how does that drive your mission?
Okay, let me start this way. I laughed, just chuckled because something just came to mind. I was trying to write and I was looking at my writing and I said, write my writing is horrible, by the way. I, and someone once told me that your brain is so much faster than your hands can move,
I've
right?
heard that before because my handwriting is like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I write some things and I'm trying to reread it some months later, and I'm like,
Thank you. I'm like, did I actually write this? What was I writing
what
here?
was I writing?
So the person told me your brain really runs and your hands are just trying to catch up and it's not doing a good job of it. And another person told me, oh, it's because you're a doctor. Doctors don't write well. It's because a lot is thrown at us and you're struggling to keep up with everything being said to you. It's not like any other field. Here you're dealing with human life. So
Yeah.
you have to actually get everything being told you, right?
Yeah.
You cannot play with any part of it. So anyway. So I was writing rooted, fruitful, ready to move. And I was looking at my writing. I'm like, yeah, okay, my brain moves faster. So that's one of the things the book also did for me, the self-reflection, where it forces you to look, like, I mean, I've said this like a million times already in this meeting, but you look deeper within. And I realized that before I was looking at my path, my pattern, and I realized that I'm always very restless when I'm at a certain point because I'm already looking. So I have arrived here. I want to arrive here. I have arrived here. But before I've even sat down, I'm already thinking of the next thing. And at some point in your life, that is okay. But at certain times, you have to just like hit the brake or pause or slow down, just slow down small. And even just savor the little, if it's a victory, savor the victory. If it's a new environment, savor the environment. Enjoy it, take it in. Take in what you can from where you are now so that you are building muscle there before you head off to the next thing. Don't leave, don't just touch and go, touch and go, touch and go. It doesn't help you. So those were some of the things that I was telling myself, as I was reading the book, that you have to stay long and grow roots somewhere because there are lessons to be learned in that place where you are. It may not even be a comfortable place. It may not be, it may be far from where you want to be, right? Let's take something for like career, for instance. You may not be in a job that you feel totally fulfilled,
Mhm.
but there is something you take out of there. There was a job I was doing at some point in my career. I mean, everybody looked, you're the big person there, you're the head of the department and all of that. But I knew that this is not what I want though. But I stuck it out for a few a few years because there were certain there were certain aspects of it that you would need in life.
Yeah.
Not necessarily about the job. You would need in life,
Yeah.
managing people, for instance.
Yeah.
You need to manage people. You manage your home, you manage your domestic staff, you manage church people. I mean, I needed that experience in that job, managing people, for instance. I mean, that's just an example. And so I just started telling myself, you need to stay long enough to develop roots. You need to stay long enough to be watered because there are people in that uncomfortable environment that would add to you.
Yeah.
Stay long enough to have all of that. And then when you have been rooted well enough, you will begin to bud, even in that uncomfortable place, and
Mm.
your fruit will be undeniable.
Mm.
The things you have learned to be visible to all. And even when you now say, I want to go, people say, yes, it's time for you to move.
Mm.
Because you've stayed long enough to actually achieve, to actually, for the things you need to be embedded. You've stayed long enough for that.
Mm.
So those were the thoughts, I said, rooted, fruitful, ready to move. Ready to move is that your fruits are right. Everybody's seeing it that, she don't big pass this place where she did. Forgive my pigeon. It's time for her to go.
By all means. No, by
It's
all
time
means.
for her to move. It's
Mm.
time for her to move. And everybody will give you, I mean, all the support you need if you need to move to a next one. So that's for me, you can't buy that one with
Yeah.
money, really.
Yeah.
It may be a book, but you
Yeah.
cannot buy that knowledge with money. So that's what I mean when I say rooted, fruitful, ready to move. And that's how you unlock impact. Because in that place where you were very uncomfortable, but yet you were doing what you needed to do, you were showing up every day, somebody is watching you, somebody is learning from you. Somebody is taking a cue from the things you're doing, and you have no way of knowing until they come back to you. I remember a few years ago, a friend, will I call him a friend? Because he was even a pastor at that time. He told me, that Tari, there's one song he taught me. He mentioned 1 year like that. I said, what song
Me?
is that? He sang this song. I said, I don't even know this song. He said, Tari, you taught me this song. So there are things you do. People are watching. And many years down the line, they'll come to you and say, you see this thing you did? You didn't even take note of it, but I learned so much from it. And many times people tell me things. I'm like, me? When did I? I cannot remember. But they're like, okay, you are oblivious to it, but it actually made an impact in my life. So we live our life, but let's not be too quick to get out from where we are, no matter how uncomfortable. There's a right time, there's a time and a season that you should leave, and then
Mm.
do the most you can in that place where you are with the support you have, with what you have in hand. And when it's time to go, your fruit will make room for you.
And ladies and gentlemen, Terry has taught a masterclass on this thing. As in, at this point, and it's just like, you know how somebody sings a song and then there's like a cover to it, and sometimes the cover is what somebody else would just love. And like, okay, I love the cover of this song.
Mm,
I'm like, I'm just
mm,
listening back and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a masterclass. So Terry is teaching it. And then it's really beautiful because these are things that over time, people are not getting grounded enough to understand that sometimes even the hard things are shaping you, so all those things work together for
Definitely.
the highs, the lows, the painful bits, the character that is
Mm,
built,
mm,
the one that is preparing you for the next phase that may even be more challenging
mm,
in a different
mm,
dimension, right? You need to
mm,
manage people, like you said. If you're now in the place that you love, but you still have to manage people, and you've not learned that when the stakes were lower,
mm,
you get
mhm,
talent at that point in time, right?
mm,
There was a comic I remember as you're talking through that of somebody who, like, this person had the cross and they're like, oh, this thing is too heavy. So they kept cutting the base, and then they got to a gulf in front. And then now it was too short to cross because it had cut off all the things that should have eventually now become a support at the time when they got to the most critical part of their journey. And that's why it's important to, take root, be grounded, so that you can ultimately,
mm,
transform all of that into impact. So no, thank you, thank you, thank you. One of the things we talked about in the class is opportunity and ability are conjoined twins.
mm,
You're able to, your opportunities help you to shape your abilities, and your abilities, you thrive in your opportunities based on the abilities that you have. And I think you've talked to some of that already, but is there
mm,
anything else
mm,
you'd like to add in that space in terms of how you can leverage current opportunities? You already said it, part of this building the character is
mm,
training,
mm,
but
mm,
how you
mm.
can use it to grow your abilities and prepare for greater impacts.
So when you are in, like I mentioned, and you're building character there, I mean, that's just what you can do. But remember that God is our architect at the end of the architect of our lives. He's the one that already knows what the graph he has plotted for you, right? So you're there building, and he knows what's coming already ahead of you. So you are there just trusting him and staying put and building and adding and all of that. And then he knows when the opportunity is there. I mean, the character you built here would measure up. So yes, while you are doing the work, I think it's not it will not be wrong to say you are also praying for the opportunities to come your way as well, because I mean you put in the work. When this opportunity comes to just be a walkover, that's not when you start building, when the opportunity is already knocking at the door. You should have something, you should have the base at least opportunities come. So I don't know whether there's anything I need to add other than, as Christians, it's not enough to just say, oh, I trust God. Do you really trust him? That's the question.
Mhm.
Oh, God, do you really, really trust him? This past month or so, I was talking, was it my husband or somebody else I was talking with, and I kept saying, you know what? I've left everything. I've left this particular thing, was a certain thing we're talking about. This one, I've left it in God's hand, as in, and I told God, like, this thing is in your hand. However you want to handle it, whatever you want to do about it, I'm not going to bother myself about it again. I mean, I've not lost hope, but I'm not going to try to force
Yeah,
what you haven't
yeah,
permitted to
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
So, so that is it. You have done your bit. That opportunity will come when it will come. It's not something you cannot preempt it. It will
Absolutely,
come at the right time it's supposed to come.
absolutely.
When I was in my waiting journey, and I remember people telling me, "Oh, the babies will come when God has ordained." It was a difficult pill to swallow, very difficult to hear, very difficult to hear because you're seeing your younger ones who are, you know, gotten married after you, having their babies, and you're waiting, and tongues will wag, and all of that, and all of that. Difficult to hear, but indeed, there was nothing I did that, brought them sooner than they were meant to appear. They appeared at the right time, the time God ordained for it to come, for them to come. So that's just it. If we say we trust God, then we must trust God completely, and knowing that He will bring that opportunity. Just do your own bit and leave every other thing to Him.
Well, people, at this point, so we're kind of taking us, she's kind of gradually taking us out. Taria is, I'm just here just like, okay, listening and listening and listening. So thank you so much for sharing all of that, Tari. I think one of the things I would say as we're kind of wrapping up is to say, what are the things that as you think about your impact assignments, right? Are there, what are things that are inspiring you in terms of how you're going to be giving back. When we started this conversation, I said some of the things you're thinking about is your legacy. How do you give back? What are you going to be doing? So as you think about all of that, what's on the horizon, when you think about the journeys you've walked, and
Mm.
those that can benefit from that journey that you have walked.
Journey, yeah. So one of the things currently doing, and I couldn't say no when I was asked to do, was because I've had this experience of waiting, like we just talked about. In church, a new group, sprung up, and they're like, oh, you need to head this group of women waiting for. I mean, you have the experience and everything. And I remember that during my time, I really, really, really didn't have that kind of support. But I felt like nobody should walk this journey, on their own, just blind, you
Yeah.
know. Mine was even slightly better because, I'm a communicator. I know how to catch people and engage them even when they don't want to talk. I will talk with you. I will bring up a topic if I think you have something to offer, not to everybody. So I'm like somebody, people need their hands held in this area. They shouldn't just go about it blindly, making mistakes along the way and all of that. If I had that, great, but I didn't have that, but I can be that for somebody else. So I said yes. And it's been a rewarding journey, even if it's just a scripture you drop for somebody who needs it at that point. Person just messages you like, you see this thing you just said. I was just telling God about it, and you've just brought the solution. That's fulfillment. I mean, we're all here. The Bible says iron sharpens iron. Nobody has it all. Everybody needs support and help at some point or the other. So in that regard, in that aspect of people waiting or going through the journey I've been through, yes, I'm there. Another thing I felt I didn't have growing up, I'm a first daughter, and I felt I didn't have well, no, I felt I really didn't have a big sister to look up to. And I think, a community, I don't know what to call it now, maybe mentoring or coaching. I'm playing around with those two words. A community anyway, where girls who are sort of in my position do not have any female um not their mothers now, but some female, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
somebody
Like I
older,
relate. Yeah.
yes, that they can look up to, not be shy about, bringing up certain subjects or topics too, and all of that. A community where people can feel free to be themselves, ask the questions, no matter how dirty they think those questions are,
Yeah.
just so that they can get some guidance. That's another thing I'm looking at doing. How God is going to make that happen, I have no idea. So those are that's one of the area where I've said, oh yeah, now take, just do what you want to do in that area. So that's that. I just feel, look, leave people better than you met them. If you meet somebody in a hole, the person shouldn't be in a hole when you're walking away. The person should have come up a bit at least. If you have even domestic people that work for you or people that work for you generally, why should they be still in the same position you met them? Something should have been added to their lives because they came across you. So yeah, there are probably many other things in the horizon, but
Yeah.
this
But
is what I'm willing to, yeah, to
so
share at this point
this is good. And
going
what you
forward.
did there is to reemphasize something that we said, in the book. It's about the fact that your journey is an asset of relatability to your target audience. And so when I
Yes.
talk about, your assignments, where I leverage one of the some framework that I'd learned, at some point, which is about to, buy, and using, and that you want to do something by doing what, using what. And often because we undersell our stories or we haven't taken our time to really think
Mm,
about the journey that we've been on, we also cheat people who are tied to us at the hip in terms of
yeah,
being able to learn from the perspectives that we have now
yeah,
developed, having walked that journey,
yeah, yeah.
to be able to benefit from that. And so,
Mm,
when you
mm,
talk about waiting, it's different when you go to somebody who's never waited. Like there's
mm.
no harm intended. It's just like, yeah, you just pray, you just breeze through it. But when you have waited, and the day when you were there, and you were doing Mother's Day, and against all hope, you were trying so hard to, like, I am truly happy for them.
Okay,
But
happy
okay,
for
on this day, this is another reminder that God, when,
mm,
and so
mm,
because of that, what that other person that might look like they're okay on the outside is potentially going through. And because of that, that word that you're sending resonates because it feels like, are you inside me right now? Because you
mm.
know what it feels like to be that.
Kindred spirit, yeah.
And that's why we need to hone in on it. Because for somebody who's going through some painful experience right now, it might not just be only for you. Some of it is shaping your
Mm,
character, or some of it is helping you to help somebody who might not even be as strong as you. And at
exactly.
that point in time, they're going to need somebody who understands what it's like to be in that position so that you can help them out and say, despite it,
Yeah.
God came through. Or despite it, we survive. Despite it, we are fine, and that's an encouragement because it comes from a place of relatability for the person.
Visibility.
And
Yeah.
so it's powerful, and that's why we need to own our journey. Just own it, and own it, and say,
Own it.
what can I do, and how does this help
It's
somebody?
yours.
It's been
Yeah.
such a joy, joy, joy to have this conversation. Like we can go on and on and on. But
Thank you.
last thing I'm going to ask you is that, if there's somebody there who is like, I'm stuck, I'm just busy, I'm unsure of the next step. I don't even know where, as in at this point, there's just this restlessness and everythingness happening with me. What would you say to that person?
Okay, so I would tell the person you need to actually just stop.
Hmm.
Um, in this era where we are, we may not know it, but our phones can be, a huge distraction, mostly attributed to social media. There's a lot of information that comes in consciously, unconsciously, subconsciously that we're unaware of. And those things take a mental toll, a toll on us mentally. So I'd say pause, 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 pause. Stop what you're doing. You're very busy. You're doing many things, but just stop and take a break. When people say they go on what they call it now, a retreat, that's just them by themselves. I understand. Now I understand. I used to think like, what's that one? Can't you do it in your room in your house? What's all this one? You're spending money to go and think. You're spending money to go and think somewhere.
I
But I
know.
understand
Mhm.
that noise, that shutting out that noise that is the beginning. If God is even going to speak to you and you are so busy hearing all that, I mean, he's speaking. It's not like he's not speaking, but you're not hearing. There are
Quieting.
so many things. There are so many things coming at you. You've opened Instagram. You've seen a flood of things that you have no business with seeing, and those things are playing like a tape. Like a recording. They are just playing at the back of your mind. You have no. So take a break. Shut everything down. If you need to delete those apps, delete them, take a break, take your journal or a book or whatever, a pen, sit somewhere quiet. If you need to travel and go away, yes, by all means do that. Sit down and start from the beginning. Start taking stock. I mean, that's what I'm going to tell them. Take stock. Start from the beginning. This girl that was born 30 years ago, 40 years ago, who was she? What did she like? Who did she want to be growing up? What her journey? What has her journey been? Take time and write those things down. And then, okay, where do I want to go to? Okay, where am I now? Look, this exercise cannot be done by somebody else, and that's just the truth.
Yep.
That's just the truth. You need to sit down with yourself, ask yourself some questions, and then give yourself honest answers. That's what I would say. That's the first thing. Oh, shut out the noise. Sit with yourself. Those questions must be answered by you, and you have to answer them honestly. That's the starting point. And after that, God just takes you on a journey, you know, tells you things, open your eyes to things. And then, well, if you want to add fasting to that, that's fine. Because sometimes even, if a full stomach can actually close your ears, you know. If you want if you want to add fasting to that, when you are hungry, your spirit somehow is very sensitive, picks up things very easily. Your spirit is alive. There's just something about fasting. Fasting is not for God to speak, it's for you to hear.
Yeah. Thank you. As in, that's what I'm finding a lot nowadays. Is for you to hear. Like sometimes you just realize that the way your ear antennas are now picking up the radar, that the information has been there. You're too
Has been
distracted.
there.
You don't be too
Distracted.
distracted to pick it up. No, thanks for highlighting that. This is very important. In fact, as we were talking about it, I was like, this is exactly the mantra of the TikTok movement. So God gave me a book, and then He already said to build on it. And at some point, He called
Mm,
it a movement. And the mantra of the TikTok movement is pause, reflect, and then
reflect.
align with purpose. So as you
Mm,
pause, the keys first pause. Like we can't we just pause. Like pause and then reflect. Ask yourself, peel the onions, be candid with yourself. Like stop,
mm.
like, okay, you and you, don't you can't lie to any yourselves, right? And then
Exactly. Mm,
ask those deep questions and then realign with purpose. And the only way you're going to realign with purpose is that the owner of the purpose has shared with you where he wants you to go. And
exactly.
often he
Mm,
nudges you in that direction. Sometimes we're just too stubborn to go. And so because it doesn't look super clear, 100%,
mm,
we're like
mm,
negotiating it, and we're like, this doesn't
mm.
make sense. But I wrote a post, recently. I said, don't make your decision in your today's worldview. when the one who
Mm.
knows tomorrow is nudging you in the direction of tomorrow's view. We don't
Mm.
know what December looks
Mm.
like as we sit today. And
Exactly.
so sometimes
Yeah.
God is
Yeah.
nudging you, but you're like, oh, this is how I have designed it, and this is where I want to go.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
you
It's
need to,
realistic to do it this way now. It's realistic to be here now.
you know,
Realistic is just based on what you
that's
see
what
around
you see
you.
today.
Mm.
Ask people in
Mm.
2020 when COVID hit that you don't realize some things that we actually thought were realistic. Hey, they're not
Realistic.
realistic. That will
Mm.
reevaluate some of the basics of life.
Mm.
But hey,
Mm.
it's again, we could continue on and on. I'm so excited. And we're looking out for those mentorship programs, all of those things. And so if there's something here, it's just
Ah.
saying, okay, where do we follow? How can folks
Mm.
follow you and connect with Tari? Share with us.
Okay, so I'm trying to be better at social media. So yes, I have my Instagram handle, which is just my name, Ditari Adebisi. Just,
Okay.
Ditari Adebisi. Facebook, I think it's Ditari Adebisi as well. Yeah. So YouTube channel coming up by God's grace. Why have I said this now? Now I'm forced to actually do this, but yeah. So for now, Instagram, Facebook, you can hook me up, and LinkedIn as well.
Thank you.
Ditari Adebisi on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Well, thank you so, so very, very
Thank you for
much.
having me,
I've
Kumi.
loved
Thank you
having
so
these
much.
conversations. These things energize me when I just hear different perspectives to this. That's the beauty of the message that God gives, right?
Mm,
There's some things that God, speaks to me about, is impressed in my heart. And then I'll hear somebody that maybe I really respect a lot give that kind of expose, and I'm like, wow. Like this thing
mm,
is not gate kept. Now there are
mm,
layers of discipline and coming up higher that allows you to start to see this more. And sometimes it's just in the little things that the obedience, those little things,
yeah.
silence, be quiet, pause, look at what
Mm,
God is bringing to your life. Who are the people that God has surrounded you with? Your point, who are the resources that are already here? That it's already an indication of where you're going. What are the
yeah.
image of
Yeah.
possibility that I'm seeing? There are people that I've been
Mm,
in groups with like 5 years ago, and somehow we now reconnect another person. And I'm like, they were an image of possibility at that point in time. And so,
point.
for
Yeah.
out there, don't discount all the things that God is trying to nudge you towards, right? Pause, reflect, realign with purpose because God created you here by design. There's a reason you're
Mm,
here. There's a reason you walk the paths that you have walked. There's a reason that you are the person that you are. And all
mm,
of that
mm,
only becomes clearer as you're going to take stock of who you're becoming or that journey to becoming. And so it's always a pleasure to always talk about, let's talk take stock. I've been doing this now for more than 2 years now, I believe, every quarter. And I'm just,
mm,
everyone always sounds different because again, that's the beauty of principles.
yeah.
They take on
Mm,
a life of theirs when they
with their
enter.
own.
It's like it enters into your own flower and then it creates its
Mm,
own,
mm,
its
mm.
own experience there. So thank you so much, Tari. Tari, I'm used to calling you Tari.
It's fine.
Thanks so
It's
much,
fine.
Tari,
Thank
for
you for
doing
having me,
this. And
Kumi.
our friends' application, we're writing
Aha.
it because some of us have to work on our own friendship behavior. So we need to check our application before we submit it so that we don't get bumped out.
Exactly.
As soon as we enter, like, no, 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 this not be it. Thank you so much. I've
Indeed.
enjoyed talking to you. So, people, if you
Thank
haven't gotten your
you.
copy of Take Stock, again, reminder it's available on Instagram. And Tara already told you there's audio book. Go ahead. In fact, before you know it, like you're just going to make it easy. You can listen to it as you go and you can rewind everything. And if you like to a hard copy person, we have it on Amazon as well. And then if you're in
Mm.
Nigeria, you can get it at SBA Reads at James Robertson in Surulere. You can get it in Ibadan or the booksellers. You can get it in Bookville World in Port Harcourt. Did I say Benin before Port Harcourt?
You said Benin. Port Harcourt.
So thanks everyone.
Okay.
Thank you for watching it. And we look forward to hearing your feedback. We don't just want this to just be one of those things. Send us a feedback. Send us your testimony. Send us what resonated with you. And please reach out to Tari, and we're all trusting and looking forward to all the great stuff that's coming from that direction as she helps others as well on their journey. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you.
Have a
Bless
wonderful
you
time,
too for
everybody.
me.
Thank you. Again, remember
Bye.
to pause, reflect, and realign with purpose. God's got you and you've got this. Thank you.